my friendly little robot. Thank you so much for your time, mate. I really appreciate it.
No, Ian, thanks for the interview. I mean, I say that, but look, DNA, Andrew Cray and I went to university together, so it would be disingenuous of me to pretend that there isn't a whole other agenda here.
Okay, right. So I can get away with murder, clearly.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm so sorry, Ian. Can you hold on for 1 sec? I'm just reloading my printer. Sorry, Ian. I'm seconds away. Right.
There we go. My speakers were acting up again too. So there, I'm right now. Okay, look, I'm still trying to get a handle on this current tour. From what I can gather, and please correct me.
Absolutely.
Someone's going to come out at the top of the show and they're going to say, tonight, the roles of Judith Lucy and Denise Scott will both be played by Denise Scott. Now, that's a pretty clever trick. Is that what's going to happen?
Where have you gotten that from, Ian?
That's what I was told, that you were sick with COVID and you had to pull out of the show, and the show is going ahead with just Denise. As I said, tell me where I'm wrong.
Almost entirely with everything. The bit that is right is that I did indeed have COVID.
Okay, well, I'm going to jump in here and say I can't believe a thing that Andrew Craig says anymore.
Well, yeah, there's been a breakdown in communication there somewhat. No, so when Scotty and I were doing the Adelaide Fringe Festival, I got COVID. We had to cancel the last 4 shows of that season. We did do a couple of interviews after that where we sort of basically said that I wasn't speaking to Scotty anymore because what happened was just after we were meant to do a show that night. I just thought I had a bad cold because I'd done 2 negative rats, because I think we all know those things are just a complete waste of time. And then that afternoon, it just went straight to my chest. And I thought, this just feels like a chest infection. But then, of course, the stage manager talked to me and said, this actually sounds really serious. They took me to emergency. And while they were taking me to emergency, Denise Scott packed her bags and got on a flight back to Melbourne. So I had to then isolate in Adelaide. And so subsequently, when we've done interviews, we've said that we're not speaking to each other, and that there's been a terrible falling out because she abandoned me in Adelaide. But no, I'm still exhausted from COVID, but I've just done a whole fucking comedy festival with it. So no, part of me would love it if Denise Scott could be playing the part of me as well. But that is not what's happening, Ian. And I don't know where my good friend Andrew got that from.
Look, I think that's terrific, and that's great. But the irony, of course, is that it's about COVID, and you just had, that was taking research too far to prove that you could survive COVID, to come back and do a show about surviving COVID.
Well, I mean, the show is really about surviving lockdown, to be honest. But you know, so it's a show that it's like a terrifying documentary for people who did not endure the 2 years that were the nightmare of being in lockdown in Melbourne. But, you know, Sydney got a taste of it towards the end there. So I'm pretty confident. And look, we've already done the show in Canberra and Adelaide, who really don't even know what a lockdown is. And they all seem to understand what we were talking about. So, yeah.
It's getting serious for a minute. How many vaccinations had you had?
3.
3, the full 3. And do you think you got the full force of COVID?
I mean, look, I mean, I guess I don't have anything to compare it to, so it's difficult to say. But I mean, look, apart from those few hours that were a bit scary where I had a very tight chest and I was in emergency and people were doing tests on me, you know, it felt like a bad chest cold for a few days. And yeah, the worst part of it for me has been the exhaustion that I haven't been able to shake off. But to be honest, I'd be exhausted at this point in the tour anyway. I just suspect COVID has made it just that bit worse.
How long were you strictly in isolation?
Oh, a week.
Yeah. And were you by yourself?
I was very lucky. So I was in a hotel room in Adelaide. And so I did get one little bit of respite because someone who works for Token they're the people who manage and produce Scotty and I, had just had COVID. So he actually drove me from Adelaide to Melbourne on like something like my second last day. So it got me so it meant like the last couple of nights I was actually able to isolate in my flat in Melbourne, and the great thing about all of that was I was able to wake up on the Friday in my own, home and leave the house. And sure enough, that was my birthday. And so, yes. So my real gift was being out of ISO and being out of Adelaide, with no offense meant to Adelaide.
Right, okay. We've had Lucy and Ethel, Thelma and Louise, Cagney and Lacey, Grace and Frankie. Where do you reckon Jude and Scotty fit into that rarefied group?
At the very top, Ian, at the very top. Between us, we've been in this ridiculous business for so long. Look, the fact that we're both still alive and still performing and still selling tickets, I think is something to celebrate. Yeah. Hence the name of the show.
But there's something really wonderful about a close, genuine relationship between two women. And that's what those couples that I mentioned traded on. They were brilliant comics. They are brilliant comics, wonderful performers. But the key to their success in every case was this undeniable sense of genuine friendship, genuine relationship, genuine love between each other. And that, above more than anything, is what made them so approachable and accessible and so loved. Dare I say you two get on just as well as Lucy and Ethel ever did?
No, we loathe each other, Ian, and we can't talk about it openly because we have to keep living this lie that we're actually friends. God knows at the start of every year, I ring up Julia Morris, I ring up Kitty Flanagan, I ring up Anne Edmonds, Celia Piccola, Hannah Gadsby. I've tried them all, Ian, and they just won't say yes. So again, I am forced to work with the dead albatross around my neck of Denise Scott. Look, in all seriousness, yes, we are genuinely very close old friends. And so, and you know what? Even if there is one thing that people always say about the show, it's, oh my God, the chemistry you two have. And I think it's because you're right. I don't think you can pretend about that stuff. We are genuinely really good friends, and we really do genuinely make each other laugh. And we really do genuinely enjoy having a dinner and a wine together after the show. So that makes a huge difference.
How do you spell wine? W-H-I-N-E?
Both types of wine. Lot of both.
All relationships have their ups and downs, and surely you annoy each other from time to time when you're about to go on stage and you just don't want to face each other in that brief moment. How do you gather yourself and perform as though nothing's wrong?
See, that's never a moment. I mean, of course there are times when we give each other the shits, but it's never that moment. And I don't think we ever feel like that before we walk on stage or when we're on stage. So, quite honestly, I am more likely to think that when we're walking to a restaurant and I have to deal with the slowest walker on the face of the earth as she shuffles along beside me because of her arthritis. Oh, she's been whinging on about that for years. But no, in terms of in fact, that is one of the moments where we love having each other. I mean, we're both quite anxious people. And so to be able to share the anxiety with someone, to have that moment of terror before you walk on stage and not to be alone is actually fantastic.
Yeah. Now, I've seen you work several times, and I appreciate what you do is impeccably scripted. But not always. I mean, there are some off-the-cuff moments that do bring the house down. But can you sometimes ad-lib your way into a corner from which there is no return, or from which there is no return with dignity?
Oh, well, I've said goodbye to dignity many, many years ago, Ian, so that's never a problem. But I mean, yeah, look, I'd very much script my stuff. So does Scotty. And when we work together, we script our stuff too. But in both cases, I guess where we are more likely to ad lib, we both love talking to the audience. And so, and I think because we've both been doing it for so long, we've both got real relationships with our audiences separately and together. And so, you know what? The worst thing that can happen when you're talking to the audience is, yeah, it does go a bit pear-shaped. And then you just go back to the script, then you just go back to the gags that hopefully work. So in some respects, we do talk to the audience in this show, as we always do. And actually, because we've now done the show quite a few times, there's a great balance of script and looseness to this show, I think. The form of the show is like a play, but now that we have that bedrock, we do kind of, we can kind of leave it and come back to it quite a lot. And we talk to the audience a lot. So I like to think it's a nice balance. But no, I don't think I've ever painted myself into a terrible corner. I mean, if things are really going to shit, as I say, you just get back to the script.
Talking about a nice balance, how do you split the writing load between the two of you?
I mean, we come up with the concept and with all the various ideas. Many of those ideas don't make it to the final product, but that tends to always be very even. And then we both go, I'll say, oh, well, I might have a crack at writing this bit, and Scotty will say, I'll have a go at writing this bit. And, so there's a lot of stuff we sort of, in terms of ideas and concept, that's very much, we come up with everything together. Then we go away and work on things separately. Then maybe I'll have a go at something, give it to Scotty, she'll have a go. And it's very even. I think the whole experience is very even-handed.
Are there things that you take ownership of? There's subject areas and topics, and there are others leave to do.
Not really. I mean, there are bits, and I mean, I think it's fairly obvious when you watch it. I mean, I think because of the structure of the show, I think it's pretty obvious the bits that we have worked on together and written and come up with together. And then within it, there'll still be some of my stand-up and some of her stand-up. And I think it's pretty obvious when we're doing our stand-up. But there's much less of that in this show than any other show we've done together.
What material is going over really well for you both right now?
Ian, I'm just going to turn on my light because I think I'm sitting in a cave. Sorry. What material is going over well, did you say?
Yeah, particularly well.
All of it, Ian, all of it. Oh, look, it's always hilarious because, I mean, you can spend, hours writing a perfectly crafted joke, and yet two of the biggest laughs in the show, well, let's just say one involves, I'm not even going to give that away. Two of the biggest laughs in the show involve props that are really, really dumb. So, yeah, sometimes that's disheartening, but frankly, Ian, we will take any laugh we can get.
We've got an election looming, and I would have thought politicians and politics are a gift to people performing comedy. But maybe I've misjudged that. Are people already over the election, or are there still gags to be had?
I mean, I did a thing about Craig Kelly the other night that I probably won't do again. I mean, look, this show is so very much about COVID and lockdown that apart from, the odd gag, we haven't gone anywhere near it really. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, certainly our theory when we were writing this show was we think people just want something pretty dumb and silly that they can have a real laugh at. And that's kind of what we went with. But look, if I were writing the show now, would I put some stuff in about the election? Probably.
I'm amazed at the depths of honesty to which you stoop. I don't think that you'll stop at anything to mine for laughs. Do you have no shame? Are there limits to what you won't reveal? I mean, I can't think of any subject, anything that you haven't raised to get a laugh?
I mean, it's an interesting thing because, yeah, I think there are very few things I haven't shared with my audience from, death and adoption and breakups and dry vaginas and my vulva portrait. And yeah, so it would appear that there's very little I wouldn't discuss. But I mean, in a way, there's no better defense than being completely open, if you know what I mean, because I choose what aspect of a particular story I want to tell. So, in a way, I sometimes think I'm not giving quite as much away as people maybe think I am.
Have you ever said too much?
The only time I think I've done that is I haven't done this for a very long time, but occasionally I've made the mistake of talking about something on stage when it was just too raw. And one thing about audiences, which I find fascinating, is they just know. It's like they can just sense when, more than anything, an audience wants you to come out and be completely relaxed with your material and completely relaxed with whatever it is that you're talking about. So something I've been asked a lot over the years is, oh, is your stand-up cathartic? And no, it's not, because I'm not trying to work out any of my problems on stage, because if I were doing that, a lot of it wouldn't be very funny. And so I will always remember getting up on stage and talking about finding out I was adopted, maybe only 2 weeks after I found out. So I was just still completely out of my mind. And so unsurprisingly, that whole story was met by just mystified silence because, yeah, I was clearly too distraught to really talk about it yet.
On the subject of adoption, let me just get serious for 2 seconds. I've got a handful of kids, natural and adopted kids. One of my foster child, actually, who'd been with me all her life, she committed suicide last year.
Oh, Ian, I'm so sorry.
Before that, we had a year of, I was trying to be positive in her life and help her. She had 3 little toddlers. One of them was already in care with my ex-wife. And she had 2 other little toddlers that she was struggling with, and they were taken into temporary care. And the magistrate asked me to take her to see her kids, so to make sure she got there twice a week for an hour or so. And in the car, we made a habit of this. She and I listened to your podcast. And it was such a bright spot because she had a comic gift, which is among all the problems that she had a very wry way of laughing at herself and her situation. And she had a very raw way with words and humor, and she clicked with everything that you said. And she would be cacking herself in laughter in the car. And it was one of the greatest memories I have, because I didn't know that those times I was going to look back on them with so much.
Oh, Ian, wow.
Have them, and I just wanted to say, you were a real part of that. And
Ian, that's an extraordinary thing to share with me. Thank you. Can I ask where her kids are now?
Yes, one of them is still with my ex-wife, and 2 of them they were in separate care for about 18 months. And finally, the carer who had one of them, she got custody of both of them. So they put both toddlers together with her. Now, this mother who's got them, she's also got a handful of other children. She's God's gift to motherhood. She's extraordinary. As luck would have it, I mean, fate can be cruel. Her own husband died only a matter of months before she got custody of the second child, Tyler. And she still went ahead. She still wanted the kids to join her family, and it's working out extremely well. It's just amazing how tragedy and good things always happen together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh boy, well, what a fucking time you've been having.
Yeah, you could say that. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, though, for telling me that story. That means a lot.
It must be time for another ABC series, surely.
Well, it's time for another ABC podcast, actually. So the one you listen to, I'm about to, when this, at the end of May, I'm about to do a follow-up to that will be called, as opposed to Overwhelmed and Dying, will be called Overwhelmed and Living.
That's terrific. I love that. I also meant to ask, in Judith Lucy versus men, who won?
Well, it's a good question. I don't know that anyone did. Oh, look, I did, because the tour went really well and I made quite a bit of money. So I'm going to say I'm the victor. What is absolutely hilarious, Ian, is that I don't know if you saw that show, but look, it was, horrendous story after horrendous story about my love life. Really, I was showing the audience that there was a great deal of evidence to support the notion that I should just never date again. And at the end of the show, I would get the audience to vote on whether they thought I should, get back on the pony or just give up. And every single night, despite listening to the tragic history of my love life unfold, every night people voted that I should get back out there and keep dating. But in my own head, Ian, I had decided I was done. I had decided that all I was going to do was concentrate on, making my life as good as I could, trying to do things for other people, fingers crossed when I could. And then if a man ever came along, that was just going to be like some cherry on the top, but I wasn't going to pursue it, but I wasn't also going to shut myself off from it. And as luck would have it, someone has come along.
Fantastic.
And so interestingly, because he saw the show, he watched it on Amazon Prime, I think it's on. And he turned to me one night and he did say, "So it turns out your audience was right."
Can I ask his first name?
Michael.
Yeah. Is he a little bit worried about what happened to previous partners you've had in the past, how they've become fodder for your show?
No, he's not, because, fingers crossed, he's not planning on spending 2 years stealing money from me.
Somewhat reassuring.
Yes. I mean, it's really easy. The only, if you don't want to be mentioned in my show, don't be an asshole. It's really that simple.
You're marvelous. Thank you so much for your time. Can I ask two favors? And you can say no.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Can we stop by very quickly at the end of the Sydney show and just say hi?
Of course you can. So just get, so I don't know which show you're coming to. So I don't know what's going to be easier to get it through Tasha. Someone send me an email. And worst case scenario, if you have trouble getting onto someone, just get my details through Andrew. But yes, of course. Are you going to the Enmore or are you going to the concourse?
Enmore, I'm hoping. Yeah.
Can I say, please come to the Enmore?
Yeah, sure.
Because just between you and me, the concourse is such a beautiful theatre, but it's just not made for comedy. So it's not, it's not as enjoyable to perform in as the Enmore, which is great.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I know exactly what you're saying. That's great. And the other favour was, and again, you can say no, but now that we're allowed to get married, my husband, my future husband and I are hoping to get married within a few months. And I was wondering if you would do a quick congratulations, well done, whatever, quick video message.
Sure.
Yeah.
Why don't I just give you my email address, Ian, and you can email me about the show and email me about the video. So you don't need the video for a while, obviously. No. Okay. So my email address is token, TOKEN, .Judith @bigpond.com.
You're bloody marvellous. Andrew's right on that score.
Thanks, Ian. Well, thank you for the chat. And yep, email me about both those things, but absolutely no problem on either count.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Right. Well, Ian, I look forward to meeting you in the flesh.
Yep, too right. Bye-bye.
See you, Ian.